Welcome to our YouTube channel. So today Dr. Yogesh Joshi will give brief introduction on evolution of Indian international trade and balance of payment. I welcome you Dr. Joshi.
Good day to all of you, and especially Professor Bernardo, who has been kind enough to invite me for talking to youth of this global economy. It has been the young people who are actually they are going to decide the future of the global economy, and naturally every individual attempts to live in peace and prosperity. There's no place for hatred, and there's no place for other disturbances. We have to ensure that we undertake whatever economic activity in a sustainable manner. So, therefore, with these objectives, world at present is facing a lot of challenges as we all encounter. Not only climatic challenges, but also the challenges like we faced very recently or we are facing at present, corona challenges. COVID vaccine is yet to be effectively, people are yet to be vaccinated. But today I'm talking about the my own country, India, and I'll just talk about some of the key features of what India is doing right at present from economic point of view. It has a long way to go. It is not that India has reached, it has become a developed country and it has reached the top of the Mount Everest, so to say. And and we have seen through economic history that it is the continuous effort of human beings which becomes important, and this is what we are doing. Last decades have been fortunate for the human beings because of the advent of information technology. Without this technology, I would not have been able to talk to you, because it is only because of the information technology and the advancement in that which has resulted in. So we are thankful to these brilliant scientists for enabling. Professor Bernardo is sitting in Mexico, and I am just on the other part of the earth. Almost we are divided by 12 hours. Now, India got independence in 1947. We all know that India was. It is in India. It is called as Sone ki chidiya, which means that it is a golden bird. But that was long back, centuries ago. And India is now making good efforts thanks to its population mainly, and other scientists which are emerging, and which have now, you must be knowing that India is the country which has the maximum number of people who are living abroad, and it has overtaken China in terms of population, or it is going to shortly overcome China in terms of highest number of people living in a single country. The After getting independence in 1947, India started its journey of economic development, and that time and even today, India is a agricultural based economy. So if we look at the trade, then India is having what you call as the comparative advantage in labor intensive products, and India was only capable of producing primary sector based goods. Government made a lot of effort to start with. It collaborated with many countries in the world, On agricultural sector, we have one institution called Indian Council of Agricultural Research, which talks about advancement in agriculture research. And because necessity, food is a necessity, and we all depend on the agriculture produce of the farmers. Obviously, agriculture constitutes one of the traditional export item of the country. But as we all know, once the necessities are fulfilled, then you need to produce manufactured goods and items as well, and that should be reflected in the structure of output being produced in the economy. Not only that, one need to be competitive, and for that you need to be able to export. So only when one is competitive, one can export to other countries. So precisely these things were happening, but agriculture in the beginning of the decades after independence, agriculture being a very climate sensitive and season sensitive, depending on the rainfall, it had its lows and good seasons. During late 60s and 70, beginning of 70s, India suffered huge drought, and it had to import the food grains despite being the agriculture dominant economy. Then, as we all know, during the 1970s, world economy suffered from huge crude oil shock or oil shock, which led to the crude oil prices globally increasing multiple folds, and all the economies, developed economies and economies like India, they had a very difficult time. The lessons learned during 1970s and the crude oil shock, it led India to, not only India but also the world, to innovate fuel efficient technologies, as we also see not only in other uh, products but especially in automobile sector and in other engineering sector. So this led to the fact that the fuel efficiency became the fulcrum of further innovation and development efforts. Again, during late 80s, there was another shock waiting for Indian economy, which was through, and also for the global economy, which was through the Iran-Iraq war. This Iran-Iraq war in the 80s, it lasted for many years, 4 to 5 years. And for Indian economy, it was very unfortunate. During the 70s, when crude oil prices increased, it led to earning of petrodollars for the Gulf economies and the oil exporting economies. These in turn led to the manufacturing and construction boom in these economies. And how India benefited from these was from the fact that they demand, there was a huge demand for a lot of labor which emerged from these Gulf economies for aiding their construction and other economic activities. India being a very populous country, it exported, or not exactly exported, but many people from India, they migrated to Gulf countries for helping their economic development. So India started getting remittances from these people, Indians who were doing petty jobs in Gulf nations. So, therefore, India's balance of payment improved considerably because of the fact that foreign exchange, which were very less, foreign exchange reserves, which were very less with the economy, because Indian economy was a primitive economy in which manufacturing activity was not taking place, and agriculture is a weather affected produce or sector. Frequent droughts during past years, they led to the difficulties in terms of the uh, in terms of the fact that how to sustain these the economic growth and the well-being of the population. Hence, we had a situation in which the we had to diversify to manufacturing activities. The war between Iran and Iraq in late 80s, it led to the people who went to Gulf countries from India, they were brought back at government expense. And the foreign exchange reserves in India dried up completely. It was the crisis time of 1990. And political situation at that time in India was that there was no strong government. And there were, because of the fact that you know that India is a democratic country, and because of the fact that elections were due and there was no majority with the then prime minister and the government, therefore it led to the fact that the India had to keep some gold with Bank of England to get the foreign exchange currency to pay for its debt repayments, and the that is how it saved itself from becoming a from defaulting in international payments at that time. 1991 therefore was a difficult period for especially for Indian economy due to the internal factors as well as due to the external factors. External factor was the fight between Iran and Iraq, and internal factors were unstable political situation and not being competitive, not being able to produce manufactured items competitively. So these factors collectively led to the economic difficulties and what is called as balance of payment crisis. This balance of payment crisis further led to India borrowing from IMF and World Bank. This borrowing had to be arranged immediately at the same time when India pledged the gold with Bank of England to get some foreign exchange to pay for foreign exchange payments. So therefore 1991 forced India to liberalize economically. So this we call meanwhile elections took place and fortunately a strong government took the office. So 1991 led to beginning of economic liberalization by Prime Minister Narasimha Rao and his Finance Minister Manmohan Singh, who later on became the Prime Minister himself. This was in response to macroeconomic crisis. So, what was the crisis? Crisis was, I'm sorry, crisis was on the external front as well as on the internal front. Foreign exchange dried up, fiscal deficit was very high, inflation was very high. So, these three indicators put together, they are the measuring rod of success and performance of an economy. So 1991 economic liberalization started. So therefore, this prior to this 1991, we consider Indian economy as the economy which is driven by license Raj, and it is controlled economy, typically the socialist economy. Meanwhile, as a result of the crisis earlier and death of a assassination of a prime minister called Mrs. Indira Gandhi, a young prime minister had taken over in 1984. He was instrumental in promoting sunrise industries. Sunrise industries are the ones which had the potential of growing fast, 20 to 30% per annum for many years. So this sowed the seeds of IT revolution and IT enabled services in India. Mm, Earlier, Indian institutes of technology were existing, which were with the help of countries like Russia, Germany, France, after independence. But this IT revolution, which was brought about due to partial liberalization and the promoting sunrise industries, promoting exports, promoting special economic zones, promoting 100% export oriented units. These measures, this started or ignited the Indian manufacturing activities also. Electronics and information technology got a boost. And since then, Indians started dominating some of the information technology globally, part of those services. And that is what is paying off in present times when we have a situation wherein the people in Gulf countries who were basically doing manual work, low paid jobs, but now because of the IT promotion of IT services and advancement of IT services and increasing importance of IT services, we have a situation wherein Indians are dominating the Silicon Valley and other IT services globally. So therefore in 1996, as a result of this, India's economy started growing and the foreign exchange reserves, which were almost zero, which were equal to in professional parlance, they equaled at the time of 1990-91 crisis before liberalization. They touched a low of 7 days worth of import payments. It increased to, it swelled continuously after that, and the foreign exchange reserves continued to increase. And today we have 500 billion US dollar as the foreign exchange reserves. Now, these foreign exchange reserves are considerably high. But if we look at the global economy, then this is how it is. More economies are having higher reserves because of to face this is good for facing economic uncertainties in future, especially the world economy has seen disturbances in the form of IT bubble. Before, prior to that, there was currency crisis in Southeast Asian economies, Singapore, emerging from Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the other tiger economies and sub-tiger economies. Then we saw subprime crisis in 2008. So since those years of 1996-97, when Southeast Asian economic crisis started, countries have adopted a policy to excessive keeping excessive foreign exchange reserves. So India also followed suit, and India's foreign exchange reserves have swelled because of the fact that the policy reforms initiated through economic liberalization, they have led to the the fact that there are so many sectors which have emerged, and policy liberalization has allowed India to create policy environment and business environment in such a manner that many MNCs have started investing in India. So therefore, we are observing huge flow of FDI into India in various manufacturing sectors. At the same time, FII in capital market, they are also playing a good role, positive role as far as the foreign exchange flows are concerned. Besides this, there is a huge population, Indian diaspora, which is living abroad, and they are continuously sending money back in the form of remittances. So these three factors have led to increased capital flows and stable foreign exchange reserves in India, so which augurs very well for the Indian economy in order to face the challenges which emerge in global uncertainties. So, therefore, beginning from 1991, the and FDI flows, FII flows, we have seen the trade becoming a major part of the Indian GDP as a proportion. So, if we look at 1950, in 1950, trade to GDP ratio in India was around 8.3% of GDP. This is now increased to 35% of GDP approximately, despite the fact that India is one of the fastest economies as far as the growth in GDP is concerned, and the globalization of India or Indian economy becoming a part and parcel of the global economy has increased tremendously. Now, in 1996, the 91 government completed its tenure, and again after that, we had a period of short lived coalition governments. Economy accounted for, GDP accounted for 3.9% share of the world GDP, which was the fifth largest in the world, according to purchasing power parity. Then in the year 2004, again the government changed, and we had Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the earlier finance minister and architect of India's liberalization. He became the prime minister. During these years, inflation was kept under check. It came to as low as 3.8%. India's economy increased to $2.870 trillion in terms of purchasing power parity and accounted for 4.7% share of the world GDP. So therefore, the as far as the contribution of India to global GDP, it increased to 4.7% and it became the fourth largest in the year 2004. In the year 2010, India's economy became $4.002 trillion in terms of purchasing power parity, which accounts for a 4.5% share of the world GDP and fourth largest in terms of real GDP purchasing power parity. So therefore, since then, India is India has become in the year 2017. If we look at, then its GDP has increased to 9.448 US dollar trillion in terms of purchasing power parity and accounts for 7.45% share of the world GDP. So from an economy which was about to be uh, this about to be zero almost, and there was on the verge of collapse in 1991. In last 3 decades, India's share in the world GDP has increased to almost 8%. Okay, so this is how India is progressing as far as the GDP is concerned. So one can conclude that based on the economic reforms, based on the Indians migrants who have been working in other parts of the world, economy is gaining strength, and reforms have led to increase in FDI and FII, which is contributing to the growth of the economy and increasing contribution of India's economy to the global economy. Thanks to the large population and economic reforms which are following. In It does not mean that India is not having challenges and problems. The, the problems and challenges is what we will look in the next part of the presentation, where we'll be discussing India's trade over a period of time, and we will also look at how India has managed its exports and imports and what are the challenges which still lie ahead. Can we have a break for a few minutes? I can keep talking. Yeah, so that is why I was thinking that we should have a break. You were telling 20 minutes. So how it is going on? There are some. So you have. Yeah. So yeah, please take a pause. I'm on the line, and it will be now. I'll be talking in terms of a little more data and facts and figures. Okay. So I'm online only. Yeah. 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 Please. Yeah. Definitely. I'll share those. So can I start now, or will take a pause as you were suggesting? 2 2 minutes. We can continue. Okay. So we'll be required to do a lot of editing. Just a second. Can we start? Yeah. So therefore, balance of payment is a very important indicator of development of any country, or to say that health of an economy. Balance of payment depicts the external sector for an economy, how it is integrated with, how an economy is integrated with other countries with regard to its international transactions. As we all know, balance of payment, for those who need to refresh the definition of balance of payment is a statement of transactions, economic transactions undertaken by residents of a country, which include individuals, corporate, and government, with their counterparts in rest of the world. The counterparts are foreign individuals, foreign corporates, and foreign governments, s- compiled during a year's time period. Okay, so it is balance of payment transactions. So this is how it is recorded by any economy, every economy, so to say. It is a double entry bookkeeping principle is followed while preparing balance of payment. This means that for one transaction we have two entries, one on the debit side and other on the credit side. That is how its name is derived, balance of payments. It has to balance theoretically, but balance of payment equilibrium is something different. That we'll discuss later on in other part of the session. So right now, focusing on India's foreign exchange situation and its external side of the story, like from where the foreign exchange is coming, how it is being spent on various economic transactions and activities. So therefore, we have in an economy individuals, corporates, and the government, which interacts with external economies or foreign economies. So, for health of the balance of payment, what is important is a country must have foreign exchange reserves. So that underpins and underlines the status of the balance of payment at any given point of time. In India, as we discussed earlier, that in 1991, India was on the verge of collapse because of the de- fear of default on external payments and lack of that was emanating from lack of liberalization and lack of its capacity to manufacture quality goods or provide quality services to the developed world or to other parts of the world. If we look at the international trade scenario, then we have seen GATT getting transformed and getting replaced by WTO. WTO is the one which provides guidelines as far as the international trades are concerned, and it is a forum of various countries. It is an organization whose members are all the countries of the world. WTO is different from GATT in the sense that, or it is more broad based in the sense that it incorporates services also. Now, when GATT was formed at the end of Second World War as a part of Bretton Woods institutions, services were not constituting much of the world GDP or world trade. So it is after Second World War and globalization, services sector, tertiary sector has increased tremendously in every country, and it is correlated that as an economy develops, services sector will constitute a larger proportion. The so therefore, if you look at the overall performance of the overall scenario of the global economy, we have seen manufacturing activities shifting from one continent to another continent, one country to another country, depending on because of the fact that multinational corporations always go for profits. Increased profits is their only motive, and hence they have a situation in which multinational corporations, they although they belong to individual countries, but ultimate their objective is to maximize their own profit. So if we look at India's balance of payment, India is also now getting blessed by the fact that multinational companies, they have started setting up their production base in India. Maybe because of the fact that India is a huge market itself, and secondly, it is because of the labor abundance. It is a cheap labor priced country. So wages are low because of the tremendous population. So therefore, labor is available cheaper. Government is progressive, and then you have huge market. So all these factors, India being a democratic country, it provides a good political scenario for any production MNCs to conduct its production activity. At the same time, cheap labor is available, friendly government, and huge market. These are the factors which have led to India observing these past years manufacturing boom, not like it desires, but at least it is progressing in the right direction. So if we look at the overall balance of payment figures, then what we observe is the foreign exchange reserves have continuously grown. Okay, mainly as I mentioned, because of the FDI flow, because of FII flow, and because of NRI remittances. So therefore, exports have kept pace with the increase in imports also. If you look at the balance of payment, current account trade balance has increased since 2014 to 15 from 1,44,940 US million dollars to 1,80,283 US million dollars between 2014-15 to 2018-19. Then, so therefore, trade balance is negative. It clearly indicates that manufacturing imports are higher than manufacturing exports. So that is typical of the underdeveloped country, where you will always have more imports as compared to export, especially in case of manufactured items. That is what we incorporate in the trade account of the balance of payment, which is a part of the current account. The second part of this balance of payment is the cu- part of the current account is invisibles, which are services, export and import of services. Now, if you look at invisibles net, then India is always having, since 1991, India is having positive, that means surplus in balance of in net invisibles part of the current account. So these have increased from 1 lakh 18,081 or 1 1 lakh 18,081 million US dollars to, it has increased to 1 lakh 23,026 million dollars. So that is a huge increase. This basically compensates for the deficit in trade account for India. So therefore, what we observe is that services are the strong pillar of India's international transactions. Manufacturing is still doing well, but it is still in deficit. But services are the ones which are contributing to the higher exports, and it has the surplus as far as the balance of payment invisible account is concerned. So this means that India is exporting more services as compared to what it is importing. So put together, this keeps the current account balance under check, which has not increased much in terms of deficit. Then comes the capital account of the balance of payment. This capital account balance again is having surplus, although surplus